Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hmm. Here we are on day 4 of 10 Days of Pleasure. So, in today's offering, I want to share all about this. This is one of my jade eggs. You can see the little hole there. So, I want to share about not generally about the jade egg, but how the jade egg can contribute to a woman or female bodied person experiencing more pleasure. This is one of the questions that I get a lot with the jade egg. Can this help me to feel more pleasure in my body? Can this help me to experience orgasm at all or to increase my orgasmic ability? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is actually one of the main reasons why I came to the Jade Egg Practice. It was because I was able to experience some pleasure sexually in my body, but I would describe it as like lukewarm. Like I didn't feel that like raging passion, like the kind of passion that just propels you through life. And I also didn't experience orgasm beyond orgasm from my clit. Um, and even still, that was difficult for me to achieve a lot of the time, especially when I was with a partner. So I was really wanting sexual awakening, expansion in my pleasure potential, expansion in my orgasmic potential. And I can say that I absolutely, definitely, without a doubt, 100% achieved all of that and a lot more. Not that that is necessarily the goal or the aim of the practice. And if a woman comes to the Jade Egg practice and that's what she wants, like with me, that's totally legit. I celebrate her for that, and I will give her the tips and the tools to support her to get there. So, how does the Jade Egg contribute to pleasure and orgasm? So, on a very basic level, what we are doing with the Jade Egg practice, or on a physical level, I should say, is toning and strengthening the muscles in the vagina and in the entire pelvic floor. So, what happens when you don't use your muscles? They kind of atrophy, they get weak. You almost like forget that they're there. Like, I'm going to be real, I haven't worked out this bicep muscle in like a very, very long time. And I don't really go throughout my life feeling my bicep muscle. But I guarantee you that if I got some weights or started going to the gym and lifted weights with my bicep, that after a couple of weeks, I would be like, oh my gosh, like I've got a bicep muscle. I kind of like this thing. It looks good. It feels good. I'm just more aware of this muscle in general because you're bringing tone there, bringing blood flow there, and actually doing exercises to strengthen the muscle. The vagina is not any different. The pelvic floor is not any different. We have a lot of muscle groups, of ligaments, of tendons, of connective tissue inside of the female pelvis. And just like if we don't use the rest of our bodies, just like if we don't maintain strength and wellness and cardiovascular health, our health can decline. The same is true with our pelvic floor, with our whole pelvis, actually. So, from a pleasure perspective, and also just from an overall health and vitality perspective, it's really like it's essential that your pelvic floor is toned and strong, and also that it's able to relax. I'm going to speak a bit more about that. So as I said, on a physical level, what we're doing is we're toning and strengthening the muscles. Just want to say, you do not want a tight pussy. Don't listen to all that bullshit that you hear in the magazine articles that tell you how to tighten your pussy. You don't want that. Tight muscles are like this. They're like a bodybuilders. They like can't move so much. There's not a whole lot of blood flow going in there. You want your muscles to be toned and strong, but not tight. So able to fully contract and fully surrender and let go and release. So the Jade Egg practice actually trains your muscles to do this. It trains them to be able to pulse inwards or contract and strengthen, but also to be able to relax and release. So what happens when you have stronger muscles in the vagina and pelvic floor, but really anywhere? You just feel them more. You become more sensitized to them. And the combination of stronger muscles and increased sensitivity, which just means that you're actually building a neurological connection between your brain and between your vagina, that blood flow is going there, energy flow, chi flow, whatever you want to call it. This is what's happening. So when we have this combination of tone and strength with more sensitivity, and the cool thing about the Jade Egg practice is that it builds all of these things and a lot more simultaneously, the result is that you experience more pleasure and absolutely more orgasms. So there are many, many definitions of orgasm. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but one definition, be it, I would say this is a limited definition, but one definition is a contraction of muscles, like muscles contracting and releasing. For those of you who have had orgasms, I'm sure that you've experienced this in your body. So of course, if your muscles are stronger, if you're consistently bringing the flow of blood and oxygen there, if you're moving your body, if you're really working to cultivate and harness the energy, of course you're going to feel more. Of course you're going to have more orgasms. It's really like basic physiology here. So another reason why the Jade Egg can really, really support you to experience more pleasure is because in the pelvis, there are 3 layers of muscles. So you have the superficial layer, or I should say muscles and other stuff too, organs, tissues, etc. So you have the superficial layer. So that's the most outermost layer. That's what you could actually like put your hand over your vulva and feel some of these muscles. And then on the inside of that is actually your female erectile tissue. If you didn't watch the video on day 2 of these 10 days of pleasure, I talk about female erectile tissue. Please, please, please watch that. This is essential information for anyone with a yoni to have. But the point is that there is a layer of muscles, and then the erectile tissue comes, and then comes your deep pelvic floor muscles. So the erectile tissue is like sandwiched in between these 2 groups of muscles. So when you are toning and strengthening the muscles, you're automatically bringing blood flow and sensitivity into your erectile network. One of the people who I learned about the erectile network from calls this the erectile network sandwich. It's literally a sandwich and they're in the middle. So one way to feel more pleasure is to bring more blood flow into the erectile tissue, which is just any tissue that can engorge with blood, and then you get that feeling of being turned on. So if you are working both your superficial muscles and your deep muscles inside of your pelvis, you're automatically stimulating your erectile network, which again leads to more pleasure, which leads to more orgasm. And side note, if you are interested in female ejaculation, this is another way to greatly enhance the probability that you will experience that. So one last thing that I want to share about muscles and pleasure in particular is that there are, so I'm talking about the 3 layers of superficial and deep pelvic floor muscles, but there's also 3 rings of muscles that exist within a woman's vagina. A really amazing teacher that is also a dear friend of mine, her name is Diane Shepherd. Totally look her up. She's at shakticore.com. She'll actually be talking about pleasure and menopause with me in a couple of days. But anyway, she calls these the 3 gateways, or the 3 gateways to female orgasm. So you really want to, if you want to experience more pleasure and orgasm, you want to tone these 3 gateways, these 3 rings. So the rings are, there's one directly around the entrance to the vagina. And then there's one more in the center of the vaginal canal, like around the G-spot area, maybe reaching a bit more up towards the A-spot, which is in the interior wall of the cervix, in front of the cervix. And then there's the deepest ring of muscles goes right around the cervix. So in a Jade Egg practice, we actually work to tone and strengthen these three rings of muscles and also to isolate them. This is one way that your yoni can become very articulate. This is one way that you can really, really please yourself while pleasing a lover if you have a lover with a penis. This is also one way that you can start to awaken your capacity for deeper vaginal orgasms from the G spot, from the A spot, from the cervix, or really from anywhere in the vagina. You can have an orgasm from any part of the vagina. It doesn't have to be located in one of these spots. And the more that you open and sensitize your vagina, not only will you realize that there's an entire yoniverse, an entire universe in there, but that every single centimeter can awaken with pleasure and with orgasm. It's a really amazing journey and path to walk down a journey of discovery. Okay, so a couple other things that I want to share about is, so not only does the Jade Egg support this tone and this strength in the vagina, but it also teaches you how to lift sexual energy to the rest of the body. So most of the time when someone experiences turn on or sexual energy, especially if it's approaching orgasm, what do we do around that? Tense, tighten, push down. This is how I used to have orgasms from my clitoris. I would start to feel pleasure, start to maybe feel some of that pre-orgasmic tingle. Then I would clench my muscles really hard, press everything down, and then have an explosive orgasm out of the clitoris for a few seconds. And, then I'm done. So there's nothing wrong with this. Believe me, I love these kinds of orgasms. They're super pleasurable and amazing. And there's more. I absolutely promise you that there is more. And every single person with a yoni is capable of experiencing more than that if you want to. So the Jade Egg practice teaches us first to soften in the yoni and to soften around the sexual energy. Now you might be thinking, you were just talking about toning the muscles, which, can have this feeling of contraction. What are you talking about relaxation? So with the Jade Egg practice, we are equally working to contract in the muscles, to pulse the muscles inward, to isolate the different muscles, and also to completely melt, relax, soften, release all sorts of tension and holding in the muscles in the vagina and the whole pelvis. So what does this do? It actually, counterintuitively, perhaps it builds sexual energy. So sexual energy and orgasmic energy, it doesn't have to just like explode out of your body and be done. It can come up and down and up and down, and eventually it starts going up and down and up and down and higher and higher and higher. It's really meant to kind of like spiral and ebb and flow and circulate throughout the body so that you can be healthy and well and vibrant and feel lit up from the inside out so that you can have access to your creativity and your life force energy. So this is one of the things that the Jade Egg practice does. We're not just locally working in the vagina, squeezing and releasing, squeezing and releasing. A lot of the times there's actually this drawing inwards and upwards. And you can even, let's try that together right now, actually. Let's try the difference between the two. So you can just practice pulsing your yoni in and out and in and out. Let's get a feeling for this in your body. And now instead of just going in and out, you want to go in and up. So there's like kind of a lifting action that's happening. And just try that a couple of times in your body. You can even imagine as you're going in and up that you're like trying to lift or send the sexual energy from your yoni, say up into your heart or up throughout the spine. So this is another way that the Jade Egg can contribute to pleasure and orgasm. This is how it really supports full body orgasms, multiple orgasms, and energy orgasms, because we're taking the sexual energy, which for most humans is just localized in their genitals, and we're learning how to work with it throughout the entire body. Again, this is a fascinating and incredibly worthwhile journey to go down, and it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So another reason why the jade egg can really, really support pleasure is because you're actually, through a jade egg practice, tuning in to your bodies and particularly your yoni's yeses and nos. So we're getting a little bit more into the holistic aspects now, but I see how much this can contribute to pleasure. So you are not just taking this yoni egg and boop, popping it up inside. That's not how it's done. There's a whole process of warming up the body, of relaxing the body, and then actually asking your body if it wants to receive the egg on that day in that moment. Every single time I do a jade egg practice or I guide a jade egg practice, this is a part of it. It's an essential part of it. Why? Because for most people with yonis, we have been penetrated either by ourselves, by a partner, by fingers, by a dildo, by whatever it is, before we are ready. And the effect that that can have, especially if it's happening consistently, I know for me it used to happen all the time, is that it can create like subtle layers of tension, even not so subtle layers sometimes, of tension, of contraction, of kind of like holding back like this. And once you start to actually ask your yoni, do you want this? And actually allow your yoni to take it in if and when it wants it, this is so healing and so restorative. I've heard so many women say to me that this is one of the most powerful aspects of the practice, because then suddenly we start to realize not only all of the times that we've allowed ourselves to be entered when we haven't wanted it or haven't been ready, but we start to become more vigilant with that in the future when we're in sexual encounters, either with ourselves or with someone else. And we start to not allow this to happen as much. And yes, it's gradual. Yes, it's a process, and it's okay if it still does happen sometimes. But just having this awareness, I have found in myself and in so many clients, it creates a sense of safety in the body, to have awareness of the fact that you can say no, even to a jade egg. And by the way, you can still do an entire jade egg practice without a jade egg inside of you and still get a lot of benefits. I'm going to link a practice in the comments. And even if you don't have a yoni egg, it's a really great way to try out the practice. So yeah, I just want to kind of go back to that point of how this creates safety in the body when we're honoring our yoni's yeses or nos. And having a sense of safety in sexuality is something that I would say is a huge component for most people that I work with. When we feel safe with ourselves, first and foremost, it's not our partner's job to make us feel safe. It's our job to advocate for our safety. And when we begin to advocate for our safety, we feel more relaxed, centered, grounded. We have stronger boundaries with ourselves and with others. We can surrender easier. And all of these things are correlated with pleasure for sure. So the last thing that I want to mention, and again, this is kind of more in the holistic category, but it very much is related to pleasure as I see it, is the same thing that I've mentioned in every single video or talk so far in this challenge. And this is that there is no goal or aim of a jade egg practice. Okay, all that you are invited to do is to show up for what's here and what's alive for you in the moment. Maybe that's pleasure and bliss. Maybe that's a deep sense of sacredness with your own body and with your own yoni. Maybe that's tons of tears or rage that's coming through. Maybe it's numbness, you don't feel anything and you're like, what the fuck? Like, I want to feel something and I'm just numb and like, it's frustrating, or there's a lot of grief that comes with that. So all of these things and really so much more show up in a jade egg practice, especially if you do it consistently. And the invitation again is to just show up and hold wide open space for whatever is there. There's no goal, there's no expectation, there's no aim. This is a practice that is there for you to really create a new relationship with your yoni and your female body. And when you I guess when you approach your yoni like this, and when you approach your female body like this, like with this openness, with this spaciousness, then a level of acceptance comes, a level of like care and self-love and sacredness can be restored. And when we are experiencing these aspects of our sexuality and ourselves from the inside, what does that do? Something awakens within you, some life force awakens within you. And again, this is absolutely associated with more pleasure, because this can also, you know, when you're holding this open space, this creates space for healing to occur. I would say all people with yonis on the planet have definitely some healing work that they can do. I certainly do. I'm not finished with my journey. I'm never going to be finished with my journey. It's lifelong. So when we create this openness and when we accept whatever is arriving for us, when we learn how to hold ourselves with so much love and so much compassion for what we have been through in our female body, in our lives, for what women and people with yonis in the world go through, when we allow this healing process to happen, guess what? We're creating space for our original essence to shine through. And our original essence is that of pleasure. It's pleasure, it's juiciness, it's aliveness. Look at like a 1 or a 2 or a 3-year-old before they've really gotten the conditioning that it's not okay to be in pleasure, it's not okay to touch their bodies. They're like delighting in everything and they're thinking that they're the most amazing things in the world. So this is our essence that will very naturally begin to break through, shine through when we're holding ourselves, when we're accepting ourselves, when this self-love is naturally starting to develop from the inside. So you may be seeing now how, at least in the way that I teach the Jade Egg, it's actually a very holistic practice. It's not just physical, but there are absolutely physical components that really everything together contributes to pleasure and orgasm and increased ability to experience pleasure and orgasm. And the last thing that I want to say is that the sky is the limit in terms of your pleasure and your orgasm. Like, it's not like you're ever going to reach that place where you're like, okay, I've reached my pleasure maximum. You can always, always, always expand your pleasure and experience more pleasure and more orgasm. And to me, this has been one of the most rewarding journeys that I've ever been on in my life, because it's not just about pleasure, actually. It's not just about orgasm or sexual energy. When you allow pleasure to come through the body and when you learn how to work with it in the ways that I've been talking about this video and what I've been sharing all throughout these days so far, it ripples out and it touches every single aspect of your life. It touches all of your relations, your partnership, your children, if you have them, your friends, your communities, how you work, how you pray, how you live, how you love. And to me, it's one of the most worthwhile journeys to go down and one of the most rewarding. So if you want to learn more about the Jade Egg, I have about, I don't know, last time I ran my Jade Egg course, I did a bunch of lives in here on it and I uploaded them to YouTube. I actually don't use my YouTube channel at all, just to kind of pull videos, but I will link that in the comments, because there's, I think, 4 or 5 videos that describe a lot about the Jade Egg in there, so you can learn more there. I'm also going to link for you in the comments a free basic Jade Egg practice. Even if you don't have a Jade Egg, you can do this practice. It's really amazing to do it along with some of the other practices that I've already shared in these 10 days of pleasure. So for instance, you could do that inner smile meditation from the first day and the resourcing meditation. Then you could do a breast massage practice, and then you can listen to this Jade Egg audio and go ahead and do the Jade Egg practice. It's a sequence that I really, really love. And if you are like, okay, bam, I'm ready to dive deeper into the Jade Egg practice, I do have my Jade Egg Initiation online course that is always available, and it's really cool because you get free access to the course for your lifetime, and you can join all future rounds that I do for free. So I'll also link that in the comments if you're curious. Okay, so I would love to know how all of this landed for you, what comes up when you hear some of what I'm talking about, and definitely create some time today to do this practice if you can. I think it's like 18 minutes long, and it's a super nourishing practice, and we're here for 10 days of pleasure, so the time is now. So create some time in your day to do that. And if you feel to, we would absolutely love to hear how it was for you, what you experienced, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the in-between stuff. And you can always pop any questions in the comments to this video as well. Okay. Mwah. Sending you love. Mwah. From me to my yoni egg to you out into the world. See you soon.